everyone. Welcome to the Flameless Fireside Podcast. Today, we are just going to be talking about flipping the script on dating. And we're going to be talking about how instead of who you're going to be looking for, you're going to be what can I do to attract the type of person I'm looking for? So we're going to ask a very tough question, which is, are you the kind of person you're hoping to marry? So we're going to dive in and just kind of get this party started. We do want to point out that we're going to talk a lot about self-reflection. We're going to talk a lot about figuring out, where you can improve, where and actually, Joyce was actually saying earlier that she was saying we also need to make sure we focus on the things that we do well. So when we're doing the self-reflection, sometimes we can be our worst critics. And so we need to make sure we're looking at our positive traits and the areas that we have to offer someone that are positive. So we're going to go ahead. Oh, actually, my name is Celeste. I'm the host. I'm here with Joyce, my co-host, and Corey, my co-host. And if this is your first time with us, we are glad you are here. So we're going to start with just talking about what a quality person is, because this whole thing is going to be about finding a quality person through becoming a quality person. So what is a quality person? Joyce, what would be your definition of a quality person?
Well, here's the thing. I think a quality person is going to be determined by kind of each of us individually, because I feel like there are certain things that we're looking for in how we connect with someone. And that's not always going to be the same thing for, every person. I think, if I think about the kinds of qualities that I want, there's obviously, we've spiritual kind of qualities. There's, financial preparedness, there's people's work ethic. Like there's just a lot of those kind of qualities. There might also be, what is someone's energy? Like I want to make sure I can match energy with someone. So lots of different qualities. And many of them are things that are not fixed. They're things that can change, can ebb and flow over time, which I think is really good in many ways, because if we're sitting here feeling like, wow, I'm not really quality, I think that can change. So I think but it's important to note, when we talk about quality, we all determine what is quality for us. So.
All right. How about you, Corey? What's your quick definition?
Well, I think that initially, I think we seek attractive, like people we're attracted to. And there's always that puppy love, and there's always a little bit of that lust. But I think what we have to push past that, and we have to look for somebody that we're comfortable with, and that. So I guess it's not passionate love, but compassionate love. Does that make sense? So
Can
it's like
be passionate too.
What?
Can it not be passionate too?
Well, the problem is that it can be passionate, but you have to move past that. Like you can, in the beginning of a relationship, when you're dating, you're like, it's passionate, but it has to move past that, because if all you have is, I can't keep my hands off of her, and that's why I want to marry her, one day that passion is going to fade a little bit. And then if you don't have the compassion love, you don't have something of substance, you're going to wake up one day and go, oh my gosh, how did I get here?
Very true. Go ahead, Joyce.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I also think, Corey, I think even when you love someone, that doesn't necessarily mean, like, we can love very imperfect people, and we can love people who are not our best match. And so I think you're right that, like, there's attraction. There's also, once we get past attraction, we might really love someone. But I think that there are also, like, we've got to figure out what are the things that are going to lead to the happiness of both people in that relationship. And to your point, like, the passion is short-lived, and it might be really happy for a while, but it can't completely fill your bucket. And so I think that's really finding a quality person is finding someone who can fill your bucket, that you can fill each other's buckets, so to speak.
I think, and I've talked about this with you guys before, but I think when you have that passionate love, that's when we start ramping up, and we start, like, we set the bar super high. And then when the passion kind of dissipates, then we're like struggling to bring that back. Like, what happened to us? Why are we like this? And I think that we should be like, recognize that the passion's there, but the bar should be low, not in a sense that we're setting the bar low for like people, but we should be like, hey, we should be able to sit comfortably on the couch in silence and not have people go like, where's the excitement? And why aren't we doing something fun? And why aren't we getting off the couch? We're just a bunch of lazy butts on the couch now. And it's like, no, we don't always have to be going out and doing passionate things. We can actually be comfortable in silence and sit comfortably together. And I think that's what I would look for in a companionship is I want to be able to come home to like peace and comfort and know that I'm going to sit with somebody that's not going to be like, bringing problems into my life or wreaking havoc on my life. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, no, 100%.
And I think it's really important because sometimes the best looking person in the room is not going to be the one who can bring you peace. Like, so I think we're often looking for, when we think about quality, we think about, who's the best looking person, who brings all these different qualities to the table, and sometimes that best quality from that checklist isn't going to be the one that makes you happy.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I was just going to go into some characteristics that we can consider when we're looking for someone that we might view as quality. So let's talk about spirituality. Like, obviously, this is an LDS podcast. We, are deep believers in Jesus Christ and his gospel. So I think when you are looking for somebody's quality, would you not consider their spirituality and where they stand in church and, before God? I think that that their spiritual connection to their Savior and their service to those around them due to that connection can kind of almost supersede like a lot of the things that maybe are physical or something that can't be changed. But if they are a spiritual powerhouse, I mean, that's attractive. Do you not agree? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say I generally think that that's the case. But again, I think that there is someone who could be a spiritual powerhouse who might not be a good match for you.
Right.
Like if you're just if you're kind of getting back into things and you feel overwhelmed by it, or you kind of have a lot of other interests in things, maybe they're all really good things, but you're not at that same level. I think it can be overwhelming. And so I think we've got to find what is the right match for us. What is the right quality in terms of spirituality for us? I think you're right, Celeste, that like, as Latter-day Saints, as people who have testimonies, we want to have, we don't want that to be a source of contention or sort of disconnection in a relationship. So we certainly want to have that. But I do think that it needs to be matched and not necessarily like, we're not saying all the very, very spiritual men are going to be at the top of everybody's list, because that may not be the case.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a hard sell. Like, I think it's going to be difficult only because like we come to the earth to be tested. And so we're on a individual spiritual journey. And so trying to compare ourselves or say, hey, I'm at this spiritual level, I better find a woman who's at my spiritual level. I don't think it's possible. And I would just want somebody who wants to be on their journey wherever they're starting at. Like if they're a brand new convert and that's where they're starting, they're not going to be where I'm at, because I've been on missions and I've done things, I've callings in church, and I've been a member since I was a kid, and it's just different, right? We have different spiritual levels. It doesn't mean that she doesn't have the potential to be an amazing spiritual person,
Right?
But I wouldn't want to say that on the list that they're going to be equal or on my level.
And to clarify,
these are just characteristics we can consider in somebody that might go beyond like things they can't change about themselves. And because I think that spirituality should be somewhat on the same level. Because if one, I know you're always having to like,
But what do you mean by level?
Like just kind of like if you're looking for an eternal,
if somebody's like a bishop and then somebody's like, I can't marry a bishop, I'm not on that level.
No, meaning like if you are looking for a spiritual eternal companion and you really like someone who doesn't even want to have anything to do with church, that may be something that you want to consider.
Well, I would say then activity, like spirit. I would say church activity. Like Their activity level is like, I want to serve. I want to go to church on Sundays. I want to read scriptures with you. But I wouldn't say spiritual level, because we're all at different levels.
Well, we're
Yeah,
all
and
at
I would,
different levels, but I think that it would be difficult coming into a relationship if you are really different on your spirituality. I really do think that that's a big thing. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, because when you go into a relationship, especially if you choose to make it, exclusive, or you move on
Yeah.
to becoming engaged and getting married, you can't expect that person to change. You can't be like, you know what, they're on the way to becoming temple ready.
I think if they have a testimony, and it could be a simple testimony because they're a convert and they just joined the church a month ago, and my testimony, and I have a testimony,
Yeah.
we both believe in Jesus and the church is true and Joseph Smith and all that in the Book of Mormon. That's where I think that we should be. I think that,
Can you expect them to change?
I expect them to, if they have a testimony, they're going to want to continue progressing and growing. But if they come in, they say, I've never been to the temple. I've never been to the temple for myself because I'm a convert. And I'm like, well, I've been thousands of times. It's like, it's different levels, but.
Right. I guess that's my point, is that if you're going to go into a relationship, because I think a big issue when we're trying to find someone who's quality is people try to change people, to make them, to mold them, to create them into someone that they want.
Yeah,
And
and we should never try to change anybody.
No, so I'm talking characteristics. So if if you're okay with someone who is a baby in the gospel, and that's fine, but they may remain there. And are you okay with that? So somebody who is like, man, I want to get married in the temple. I want to try and get this eternal, thing going on. And you do take a risk if someone is a little less immature in their spiritual journey, I guess.
So what's funny is that this is exactly what this study, I was doing some research this week. That's exactly what this study was saying. It was like, if guys had a list of 10 things and women had a list of 10 things, guys, if a woman had 8 of the 10 things, just randomly 8 of the 10 things, the guys are going to go for her. But women rank the 10 things. And if they don't have their top 3, if the guy has 8 out of the 10, but the top 2 are the top 2 on her list and he's not fulfilling those, he's out. Where a guy's like, hey, you know what? If she doesn't have the 2 things I'm looking for, but she has 8 of them, I'll take it, whatever. And that was an interesting study, that women rank their 10 versus like in hierarchy.
I can definitely see that. And I've even
men are just like, oh my gosh, she'll cook for me and she's sweet and nice and doesn't yell at me, I'm in. And women are like spirituality and fitness and all of these. If they don't have their top 3, they're out. Even if the guy has 8 of the or 7 of the 10 and they don't have the top 3, if they don't have that top 3,
if they have 4 through 10, it's a no-go, huh?
Yeah, if they have 4 through 10, it's a no-go.
Well, so if we could come back to the just to this discussion of matching spiritually. So my intent was never to say that 2 people should always be the same, but I think they have to, right. And so like in many qualities, you have to be able to say, okay, someone may be a little bit different, but what is their intent? Like maybe they don't have experience in serving in the church, but they have a desire to do so. And you have a burning desire to do so, like, then that could be a match, because you could do those things together. But if you're someone who, like you're the one who's there early to church because you always want to make sure you help set up the chairs in the primary room, like you're all of these kind of things, and the person that you're seeing doesn't really like want to even accept a calling, like they may still be a spiritual person, but like you have to be able to understand, how is this going to work together? We may not be exactly the same level, because you're right, you can't measure that, but right, like do we have enough of a similarity that it works together, that we can consider ourselves equally yoked in that area?
Exactly. And I didn't mean to make this like a big discussion, but I do think it's interesting as we go over these just characteristics to considering someone who we might view as a quality person, that even something as simple as that, you can see all the different emotions and views and considerations. And we're coming from an LDS podcast. So it's just interesting that when we see or what our mind is or what we created as quality will vary greatly. So a lot of people watching this might disagree or agree or whatever. But
well, no, that's what's interesting about having like me and two ladies on the panel, because we have different impressions about it. Because like I'm of the mindset that if a woman has potential, but she's not quite there, maybe she's had a rough divorce, or maybe her husband manipulated her in the temple and she doesn't want to go to the temple anymore right now, but she wants to meet the right guy to take her back to the temple and give her a good experience. Like, I'm not going to judge her for like, oh, you don't want to go to the temple? Okay, well, you're not on my level. Like, I'm going to be like, you know what? You're a great person. You have a lot of qualities. I think you can get there.
That is not how I meant it. So
okay.
Just so everyone out there knows, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, just clarifying.
I'm just saying that you can't expect somebody to change. So if you did meet somebody who had a really rough marriage and got manipulated in the temple, and they're like, I don't know, maybe I'll date you, maybe I'll get back into the temple. If you choose to date that person, if you choose to become engaged and choose to marry that person, you cannot expect them to change. They are where they're at. If they change, great. If you guys grow and come together and get sealed and, start on your journey of being an eternal couple, wonderful. But I don't think it's judgmental to want to have somebody who's already there. If you
have to have what you want, you've got to have your wants, right?
And
you got to have your list of things you want.
You're not going to try to adjust and mold somebody to make them quality. And that's all I'm trying to say. Like, there is a spiritual realm to this. We are a Christ-centered podcast, and
True.
You have to keep in mind that some people may not change, and that's and that's up to us. If we're like, you know what, I'm going to love you, even though you sit on the couch and watch.
See, that's where dating comes in, right?
Sunday, I'm just going to love you that way, and I'm happy with that. Whatever.
Now,
as long as
people might not like this, but I think that's why dating is it's like a test, right? And sometimes you have to test people, and maybe the test is Joyce tells the guy she's dating, "Hey, we're going early to set up chairs. Could you meet me there to help?" And the guy's like, "No, I don't do that." Then she already knows, like, oh, the guy's not willing to.
Yeah, I would say something different, because I don't like the idea of a test. I'm not going to test someone. But I think that
I don't mean like a bad test. I mean,
no, I know, but even saying, I'm going to see how he feels about this, I would not recommend doing that. But I do think to say,
how would you know if somebody has red flags? Like if say you made a date and then you canceled the date and then they threw a huge fit, like that would be a good test to find out that person has emotional problems.
I think you find that out enough naturally in dating. I don't think you need to set up a test to do that.
As long as you're dating a while and you've made sure you're not.
I don't mean to use the word test. What I meant was you're observant and you're going through your dating and you're observant. But what I mean is that if you were to say, it would not be like you're actively doing a test, but you would be like, "Hey, can you come help me set up chairs?" And the person's like, "No, I don't want to go to church early." And then you're like, okay, note to self, right? Or if I said, "Hey, something came up, I got to cancel our date. Can we go out tomorrow night?" And then she's like, "But I bought a dress and I got a babysitter and I can't believe you're so inconsiderate." And I'm like, whoa, note to self. Crazy girl, because I canceled the date because something came up, right?
Well, maybe before you note to self, which a perfect idea to note to self, but maybe engage in a conversation as to the why. And then, so you have the full story before you make a note and a red flag. But Joyce, were you done? Because I'm not sure. Were you done with?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like I said, I think that you naturally come up with those opportunities. And I also think the problem with saying, I want to test her on this, because you know what? If someone said to me, "I'm sorry, I can't come early tomorrow to set up chairs. I don't," whatever. There could be a myriad of reasons, because I think it's a rare man who would, if they're trying to date someone, who would say, "I'm not setting up chairs." They wouldn't say that. They might repeatedly
a crazy man would.
Well,
a personality disordered man would.
That's true.
So those things would show up in other areas, would be my point. But I do think that there may be lots of reasons that there may be problems that they don't want to talk about. What if someone's really got a bad back and setting up chairs is like, it just aggravates it. And they're afraid to tell you that on the first try. Maybe by the time you know them well enough, you're going to understand that, but they serve in other ways, you know, like I was recently a primary president, and that was my pet peeve is I can't even tell you how many chairs I have. Like if there was an Olympics for the number of chairs that people had to set up, I would have been like on the podium.
Like, yo, I have got the gold medal.
Right? So maybe that's not a thing, and maybe they can't help with that, but there are plenty of other things that you can observe about someone to see, are they the kind of person, are they dedicated in the way that would be important to me in a relationship? And so I think it's okay to give them a little bit of time and space to figure that out. The thought of making it a test just does not feel authentic. So.
I think he's kind of rearranged his wording on that, which is good. But I do think.
No, I'm not saying you're going to have an actual physical test. Like here, you got 100 questions to answer. I just meant you're always observant, and then you're like, hey, here's a good opportunity for me to see how they react to this situation.
So again, just at the core of this is if you're going to make a mental note, which of course you're going to as you're dating, I mean, that's perfect and you need to do it. Just make sure you have the why before you do the mental note. So really quickly, we're just going to go over a few of these other characteristics to consider. Maybe we won't discuss them in this much depth, but I also thought you could consider their emotional maturity, which is important. Where are they on their emotional journey? Because you know what? A lot of people that are our age and in the singles world, they've been hurt either from divorces or lack of marriage or breakups with dating. I mean, it's hard. It is a hard place to be. And so there's emotional maturity. Then are they honest? Are they kind? Are they respectful when you go out to dinner? Are they rude to the waiter? How do they treat their parents? How do they treat their children if they have them? You know, there's that aspect. I also thought you can see if they're humble and teachable. Do they like to listen to others, and do they like to self-reflect? So those are just some of the characteristics I was thinking of that aren't physical, that they can't change. You know, like I want someone who's 6'5". We've talked about this today. Or we want a certain size of weight or whatever. So I thought that there are certain characteristics in my mind that make someone a quality person. I personally love sense of humor. I think someone who can make me laugh, that's awesome for me. And that's a quality person in my mind. So are any of those you want to chit chat about, like this emotional immaturity?
I think emotional stability, I think you hit that on the head. Emotional stability, and then agreeableness. Those are probably the two. And we kind of talked about this pre-show, but because emotional stability means that you're going to say, hey, something came up and I got to cancel the date. And they're like, oh, no problem. We can go out tomorrow night. That's not a problem at all. I'll just call the babysitter and rearrange things. And I'm like, wow, emotional stability. That's awesome. Right. Note to self, this person, when something changes, and it's unexpected, they react pretty well. And then agreeableness would be like, hey, we're having a conversation. Maybe we're talking politics or religion, or we're talking something. And they just constantly are just debating you. Constantly, they're if you say up, they say down. You say left, they say right. Like they are just constantly against you. They don't agree with you. They're just very unagreeable. Like, and you can even say like, look, men are naturally stronger than women. And then they say, oh no, they're not. There's tribes in Africa that are all stronger than the men. I mean, and they just want to argue about everything. And you're just like, you're not agreeable.
Yep.
Those are my two huge red flags.
Any of those?
Well, so the two that really strike me, one is purpose driven, because I just feel like, and I realize that, when you're married, and for many of us at our age, if we get remarried, it's not like we're looking forward to having children and having that kind of purpose driven existence. But I think that having goals and things that you can do together, like I've said this probably many times, that I'm less concerned about how much money someone makes than I am about how much of the hustle they have, how much drive they have to do something. And so that kind of thing, like wanting to do things instead of just wanting to just kind of like exist together. So that's an important one, I think. The other one, and it's tough because humble and teachable, I think sometimes those feel like not very masculine traits. And so I think when men hear that often, like the idea of being humble and teachable doesn't seem like a very strong male quality. But I do really believe that, and maybe those aren't the right words, but I think that it often comes down to, like, women want to know that they're heard. Like, you may be able to have a really good conversation, but when they have a point of view and they're with a man who's very masculine and doesn't want to be humble about it or whatnot, I think you lose them sometimes when they just don't ever feel like they're heard. So I think, and I think humble and teachable is as close to that in terms of qualities, but I feel like those are really good qualities. It goes both ways too. Like, as Corey was saying, like if you're having a conversation and a woman is just saying to you, no, you're wrong in every which way, that ability to hear each other and to learn from each other and to consider someone else's perspective of view.
Yeah,
right?
emotional
Absolutely.
stability and agreeableness for men is very, very important. For men to say, yeah, I hear what you're saying and I see your point of view. Or a woman says, hey, you know what? I can't see you. I got to go out of town. And the guy's like, this isn't fair. I spent all this money and made all these plans, right? And then you're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with this guy? So it goes on both sides, right?
Yep. Oh, what do you think? Do you think that humility is a masculine trait, Corey?
Humility? I think if it's done in a masculine way, I think the problem is that women just don't understand, like they have an idea of humility versus men have an idea of humility.
I think a man, and I this is just because I'm a female and I'm attracted to men. I'm not saying that this doesn't apply to women, but as a female who is attracted to men, I think a man who is willing to like listen to conference, listen during sacrament meeting, and come out and being like, you know what, I never really thought about it that way. I think I need to focus a little more on daily repentance, whatever. Or if they come out and they're like, you know, I am sorry. Like a man that can say, I'm sorry. I mean, that is, to me, that's very attractive.
But it has to mean it. Like you can't just be like, sorry, so you can shut up. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be the right.
Yeah, authenticity.
And to us, like, because I feel like sometimes we think of humble as being sort of sniveling and like, and right. And that is not what humble is. That's not how we see humble. Like what you just talked about, a man coming out of conference and hearing a message and saying, I think I need to change, is so attractive. Like to say, not because I said they should, but because they had a spiritual experience that said, I need to do something different. Like they're humble enough to say that. That is so hot. Yeah. I mean, honestly, well, it really is.
I'm sure I think men will be humble in different ways too. So like in your scenario, Celeste, like if I was really messed up, like if I really like offended you and I'm like, oh man, and not being humble would be like, what's wrong with this girl? She needs to get over it. Or I could go sit on the couch and sulk in silence, right? That's not humble. But if I were to come to you in the kitchen and say, and just give you a hug and go, hey, I'm sorry. Like just that's where men are being humble. We don't have to grovel. We don't have to like list all of our evil deeds.
Like we don't.
Well, wouldn't that be vice versa though, Corey? Wouldn't you be? Let's say you're cooking dinner and your wife or girlfriend, whatever, is acting like an idiot. And then she's like, you know, I'm sorry, Corey. And gives you
that's great. Because I know she meant it.
Solves it all. And it's attractive on both sides. But I think
it is. Yeah.
I like it. I think it's attractive and it makes me think he's soft on the inside and still a masculine man on the outside. And I love that. Okay. We're going to move on. Okay. So, go ahead, Corey.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. So we're going to move on to self-reflection. And this is where it can get a little more difficult. I think we like to point out other people's areas where they can improve in scenarios, but it really becomes a challenge when we have to look inside and look at ourselves and accept the imperfections within us. And this is where humility is key. So I love that little segue. So thank you, Joyce. But so we're going to talk about when you're going to date, especially before you get into an exclusive dating relationship, you need to self-reflect and you need to ask yourself some of these questions. I'm just going to read them real quick and then we're going to go into like 5 areas that we can chat about for self-reflection. But here are just a few for you to consider asking yourself, and how you answer these will help you decide if you should get into a serious relationship or not. So here's number one. Am I emotionally available, or am I carrying unhealed baggage? Okay. I think 9 times out of 10, a lot of people are carrying baggage. Now, you don't have to be free from baggage, but are you on that, on the path to healing? So number 2, do I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? Church, for us, it's important. How do I handle conflict or disappointment or criticism? What's the reaction there? Think about that. What does my self-talk sound like? Okay, now I know, Corey, you're into this self-think and talk in your head. How does someone even recognize? Because I think a lot of people get confused what self-talk is, because they're just so used to thinking that it's just natural. Like, what do you mean self-talk? I don't sit and talk to myself. I'd be crazy if I was talking to myself. So what does it mean if someone says, what does my self-talk sound like? What would that mean to you? Give us a kind of a good explanation of that.
So I think with self-talk, it would be like, I'm going into a room. I see a pretty girl across the room, and I say to myself, there's no way she's going to like you. She probably likes tall guys. She probably likes guys with full heads of hair. Probably Tom Selleck likes, kind of, And so I'm already just kind of talking myself out of the game. It's all negative. It's, you're ugly, you're bald, you're short. And so that's negative talk. And then it's also the reverse. So say you go in, you're like, you positive talk, and you're like, hey, dude, you're looking pretty good today. I bet that girl will say, I bet if you go say hi to that girl, she'll give you her number, and you go up and say, hey, how you doing? And she's like, not interested. Now you got to worry about the negative self-talk, right? Because now you're going to walk away going, you're such a jerk. Why did you do that? You're a moron, blah, blah.
Never tried.
So negative self-talk can really wreck you.
So yes, so it's more of, what are the messages you're giving yourself? Because it's when you're assuming things of the world around you, and then you're telling yourself something like, again, I am not pretty enough to go ask that guy to dance. He doesn't like, anyway, he doesn't even like blondes, whatever.
Sometimes the self-talk comes out orally, and you can hear your friends even say it. And so, like, you'll go to a room and your friend's like, oh, no, I can't go in there. No, I'm a terrible dancer.
Yep.
No. The guys aren't going to ask me. They only ask the pretty girls. And you're like, you're hearing their self-talk coming out of their mouth. But if it's coming out of their mouth, it's got to be really bad in their head.
Okay, so that's a question.
We are so brutal to ourselves. We're like mean girls to ourselves in our heads.
100%. So number 5. Go ahead, Joyce.
Sorry, I just want to make a comment. Like, I think one of the things that's really tough about the self-talk is that so much of it is lies and things we don't know anything about. Like when we're saying that girl she only likes this, she only whatever. She might not even have noticed you. If she says she doesn't want to dance with you, it could be because she just got her foot stepped on by somebody else. Like, there's so many other reasons that aren't, I'm not valuable. And I think the problem is often that negative self-talk is, I'm not valuable. And we have to get better at, I think, 2 things. One is we have to know and understand ourselves enough to say, I'm a person who's worth connecting with, talking to, dancing with, whatever. So that's, I think, one part. And then sort of not trying to fill in all of the stuff that we just don't know. We tell these stories that are entirely untrue because like we struggle with that feeling of self-esteem. So I think we have to start at the place that says, if they don't want to dance with me, it's a them problem, not a me problem. Yep. Like, they would be lucky. And so it's a them problem, not a me problem.
I agree. And the thing is one last thing on that is, I feel like anytime you assume someone's thinking or what they would react, or first of all, it is not fair to them. That is unkind to them, because you're automatically putting them as an unkind person.
Yeah.
And
but then you're already throwing yourself under the bus. You're like,
yeah.
Oh, she's not gonna like me because I'm negative,
yeah.
Right?
And it's a
fulfilling prophecy. Yeah.
Defense mechanism was I was looking for, but yes. And you do fulfill your own prophecy with that. So, okay. Number 5, just stop and consider, how do I show up for others when it's inconvenient. You know, a quality person will kind of go out of their way, even if it's tough for them, to help other people, and they will sacrifice for other people. So kind of think, what do I do when someone asks me to come put some chairs up before whatever? So those are the questions just kind of consider. But we're now going to step into 5 steps to becoming a quality individual. So we're going to talk about how we need to self-reflect and how we can, what steps we can take to get there. So I know we talked a lot about testimony and spirituality, but obviously you do want to focus on your testimony and keep strengthening your testimony. And it is all just the primary answers, you know, read your scriptures, go to church, tend the temple. With anything else, I mean, just when you're aligning your life with God, what are some things, what questions should we ask ourselves on that?
Well, my stake president he just counseled us to do something that I think is really valuable. And I think it's helping me in terms of deepening my testimony. He said that we should find a time where we can pray aloud with no time constraints, so that we're really having conversations with our Heavenly Father. Like, I think sometimes we get on our knees and we do this quick little, okay, did I cover all my bases? Said what I'm thankful for. Here's the things I need. And boom, we're done. And so the advice that he gave, which has just been really impactful for me, is to find a time where you can talk out loud to your Heavenly Father. I often do that while I'm out walking, and I work through all of we have these long conversations about the things that are going on in my life and the things that I'm struggling with. And it has made such a difference. And so I think, like, if you really believe that Heavenly Father loves you and cares about you, talk to him. Like, because I do think we tend to think of prayers as just like on your knees for 5 minutes and done. Talk to him. Like, I just think that's a huge way to deepen your testimony.
I agree. Anything on that, Corey?
Well, along the lines with self-talk, I always do self-prayers.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to pray when I'm driving, when I'm just sitting on the couch, and I try to be thankful. And I try to show gratitude when I can. So like if something just happens, I'm just like, right away, I'm just like, Heavenly Father, thank you. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And just having little prayers throughout the day will change your self-talk, right?
Yeah, it will.
And you know, and so I try to think of things like, oh man, I try to be very aware of the blessings.
And
I
think
just go, wow, even if they're little blessings, like I always say those little things, right? And I always think of the song, right? When they say, you know, did you think to pray, right? And they list things that, you know, the little things out there that you could be thankful for.
Yeah.
And so if you can just do that throughout the day, it just changes your appearance and your countenance. And
yeah, it's like having a prayer in your heart. It's like just constantly reflecting and recognizing the Lord's hand in your life. And I think this is really a good point or location to point out someone who's pessimistic versus someone who's optimistic. There is, to me, there is probably nothing more draining than to be with someone in a room and it is negative from start to finish. I mean, it is whatever we're discussing or talking or looking at. I mean, it's just negative view and it just drags you down. So when you're constantly thinking about being grateful, thinking about the Lord's hand in your life, thinking about what can I say thank you to Heavenly Father for in this minute while I'm driving, it changes your outlook. It changes your self-talk and you become more optimistic. I would assume. I think that would be a good way to improve your outlook and become
there's a lot of research on gratitude that shows that, like, because they say people who are happy are not more grateful. It's people who are grateful who are more happy. And like, there's there's research that's been done that talks about if we are grateful, how it changes our outlook on things. And so I think it's really important for us. And like, what a great opportunity to pray and to talk to Heavenly Father about when we're grateful for things. But it really, the brain chemistry, the things that it does when we are grateful, it makes a huge improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can even experiment with yourself. Like if you just sit on the couch and think like about the little things in your life, right? Just like, you know what? I went to the store and my favorite food was on sale. And I'm so thankful, right? Just those little things.
Yeah.
But if you switch it up and then you're always, when you're focused not on gratitude and you're focused on what you don't have, you end up being envious. You end up grass is greener on the other side at all times. And you end up miserable, right? Because then people are like, oh, I just bought my house, but it's not the house I wanted. Or look at the neighbor's house. Or look at the neighbor just got a new car. Oh, my car is so old. And your focus is on all these external things of what you don't have. It does make you unhappy. It does make you miserable. It does stress you out.
And it's hard to be around someone like that. It really, really is. So if you find, like a suggestion for someone who's self-reflecting, and as we self-reflect as well, like, can we do better at looking at the positive, like looking for the good in life, looking for the Lord's hand in our life and the things that he gives us every day. I mean, all of us have challenges. I mean, we're all probably going through a lot in our lives, but how we handle them, our outlook for them can actually change. Do you know it can actually change your DNA, your thoughts, actually change your DNA?
Well, I think it makes you look younger. I think you can get younger or you can at least stave off age if you're not always negative, always worried, always wondering why you don't have stuff. Like all of those things just stress you out in the cortisol levels. But if you walk around just being like, you know what? I had a piece of bread today and I'm grateful. And people are like, that's so stupid. You're like, no, I'm not. I'm just being grateful for the fact that I have food and there's people that don't have food out there. And I'm just grateful that I had food today. And just those little things every day.
Joyce.
Yeah. And like I said, there's science behind it. Yeah, there's science behind gratitude in terms of the impact that it has. Like I would encourage anyone to Google that because it's pretty powerful science behind that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joyce, I think you must be very, very positive and gratitude filled because you look much younger than you look very young. So anyway, but yes, okay.
I didn't hear to say that.
You can just slide the 20 under the table later.
Right.
Let's go to the next one. And we did talk about this, but we're going to strengthen our emotional resilience. So, how do we learn emotional regulation? Because you know what? A lot of us coming out of the pains of childhood, the pains of marriage, or the pains of never being married, pains of all the different broken up, relationships. There's lots of patterns that are created. There's lots of triggers that are there. So how do we become emotionally regulated? What are some thoughts?
For me, it's recognizing that those emotions, they come from me. Like they're my emotions. And then I can regulate if say you say something that irritates me, right? I don't say you irritated me. I'm just like, Celeste just said whatever she wanted to say. I'm the one who got irritated. It's my irritation issue. And I think it's like the gratitude thing, right? If we're so focused on what we don't have outward, rather than focusing inward on what we do have and what we're grateful for, it's the same thing. If I get irritated, I take a breath and I'm like, I have to actually look at it. I have to recognize, like, where's that emotion coming from? Because maybe it is coming from daddy or mommy or a bully from high school or a bully from, you know what I mean? It's coming from somewhere and I need to know why that's triggering me. Maybe it was a bully that made fun of me and then Celeste said something about my bald head and I got offended or something, right? And she was just being funny and I was like, oh, she's a bully. But those are my issues and my emotions that you weren't trying to hurt me.
I'm not fond of bald heads. Just kidding. Go ahead, Joyce. I know you're saying something.
Oh, I'm so hurt.
So I think that often you have to start with the spiritual when you're talking about emotional resilience, like, because you have to understand the whole plan and like the fact that we go through difficult things in life. Like, I think you have to have a long view of life. And I think that can help. I don't think it's the only thing that you need to do. But I also think that I like what Corey said in terms of you have to take responsibility because it is you. And I do think, honestly, we have to be willing to sort of see ourselves very truthfully and understand when we're in bad places that we might need help. Like if we're going through something, we don't have to go through it alone. And we can say, I need to get a therapist because I see that I am not well regulated and I need to get someone who can help me walk through it. And in truth, like the solution to the problem is going to be within you. You're the one who's going to have to fix that. Sometimes it's really helpful to have someone else who can walk you through that. Someone else who can say, okay, you've recognized that things are not going well and I want to help you. So let's talk about it. And then I will also say, and this may be tougher for guys, but I think having good friends who are willing to be able to say to you, are you aware of what's going on here? I have my best friend is the best because there are times when I will say things that are outrageous, and in the most kind way, she will make me look at those statements and make me rethink them and sort of say, okay, you're right. That was a little bit, over the top or whatever. But I think for me, emotional regulation comes from recognizing that I have to take responsibility and that sometimes I need help because it's tough when we've gone through really tough stuff, like just expecting that we're just going to white knuckle into this position of I'm going to be better. Like sometimes we need help, and recognizing that is so important.
Yeah. So help, what, therapy?
Well, that's
Journaling?
going to be the extreme, right? I mean, if you can practice like driving down the road, and if you're angry at every driver that ticks you off and cuts you off and every driver makes you mad, then you've got to work on that. Like right there, you can focus on that and say, today I'm going to drive without anger. And today I'm going to give every driver grace. And I'm not going to get pissed off and blow on my horn and yell and scream and bang my fist in the air. Like if you can just start with little things like where strangers are angering you, like that's a problem. And if that's something you can't fix and you're just like, I've gone 3 days in a row and I still get angry at drivers, and seek help.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to point out that it's okay to need help.
Absolutely.
Life is hard.
But you have to admit it, right? They said the first thing you have to do is admit you have a problem, right? And any problem you have, first thing you have to do is admit you have it. Like I'm an alcoholic or I'm a drug addict, right? And then you can get help. But if you walk around going, I'm not an alcoholic. I like 18 beers. I'm not an alcoholic, right?
For lunch and dinner. You need to make sure, like, this is my thing, because I'm thinking someone out there is like, I don't know if I have issues. Do I have triggers? Do I have patterns? Like, what is my emotional resilience? And so I think it's important to realize, like what Corey is saying, I think it's a fabulous idea. Watch yourself in tense situations. How do you handle them? How do you handle someone who disrespects you? How do you handle someone who isn't doing what you want them to do? And then once you deal with the situation, you need to stop and ask yourself, why did I say that? Why did I do that? And then this is what's really important, because you have to be honest with yourself. Because if you're going to justify it, well, I did that because, he annoyed me. But then it's like, well, or, whatever. Then I'll say, well, he's annoyed me. It was not my fault. He's the one who annoyed me. Like we have to be honest with ourselves about why we do something. Why did I say it that way? I mean,
a psychologist had said that it takes two people to make a great relationship. It only takes one to destroy it.
Yeah, 100%.
And usually that one person is the one that's emotionally unbalanced and is very unagreeable. Like they don't have agreeableness. And so a lot of times they run hand in hand, right? It's you made me angry. And then their anger keeps spinning out of control. And they get in these crazy fights where they're like, no, the sky is green. It is not blue. I don't care what you say. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like this person is absolutely insane, because their anger just gets the best of them.
Yep.
They can't lose and
keep trying to talk. So go ahead.
Yeah. So two things. Number one, I would say, I think that if you don't know if you are kind of doing a good job at emotional resilience or regulation, I think look at your friends. If you're in a position where none of your friends are talking to you, you probably have a problem. And like looking outside of yourself. But the other thing I wanted to say is, I don't know if you all can see it, but Everett put a great post out there that talks about, this is how you become emotionally regulated. And we've touched on a lot of them. Understand your emotions, develop cognitive strategies, practice mindfulness and meditation, build healthy coping mechanisms, strengthen social connections, regulate physiological responses, cultivate positive emotions, seek professional help when needed. So I think it really comes down to having a supportive environment, people who can help you when you need help. So,
and people
I
who
think
can call you out in a kind manner and say,
yes, so valuable.
That's not how we handle things, right?
So friends just friends who always tell you you're amazing and wonderful and never do anything wrong aren't really helping you. No. Like, I love those kind of friends, because who doesn't want to hear that? But they're not really helping you. So,
and if everybody else is to blame, like if all of your, like, you dated a handful of people and the breakups are all their faults, you've had all these fights and it's only the other person's fault. I think it's important to stop and to say, what could I have done better? What shouldn't I have done? Like, actually ask yourself these questions. And this might actually, Joyce, what you had recommended, speaking out loud. I mean, just don't answer yourself, I guess, but talk to yourself. Say, why did I say that?
Yeah. Well, that's where the self-talk comes in, the self-evaluation, recognizing, like, why did I get angry with this person? They had no idea that was a trigger for me, or they just came in and said something and I reacted, and they're just like, what the heck happened? Right. And you have to realize that they had no intention of walking in the room and making you angry. Like, when people say you made me angry, it's like, I did not walk in the room, look at you, target you, and go, how can I make her angry? Like, that's what we have to realize, that we are the ones who are responsible for our emotions. We allow ourselves to get angry.
But we do also. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, my therapist back in the day was telling me that, because she kept saying, well, you're in control of your emotions and which is true. But she did do a little asterisk, and she was like, listen, she goes, if someone is intentionally trying to hurt you, intentionally trying to poke your buttons, intentionally trying to get at you, and they know how to hurt you, and so they do it, they own part of that responsibility. So, because sometimes if it's someone you love, if it's your parent, if it's your child, if it's you're dating someone, your spouse, whatever, like, that is a totally different level. Yes, you still don't have to react, but if you have your mother telling you horrific things to your face and you don't have a reaction, then I would actually question, are you okay? Are you that shut off that you don't have an emotion? So understand when we say that it's your control, you have your emotions and you can manage them. We do also recognize that there are times when some of the other people do have some, responsibility in the situations. So I just don't want, I know there's a lot of victims out there that have been traumatized by people, and I don't want y'all to think that we're saying.
But that's when you're at that level, you need to get professional help. Like, if you're so traumatized by that, everything a person says or does to you triggers you and gets you angry, that you probably got to go get some counseling to figure out why that's happening. Because, I mean, there really is no way, there really is no reason. I mean, I've spent a lot of years, I've worked on myself. I came out of a crazy relationship, and there was a lot of triggers, and I was with somebody who was not agreeable and had no regulation of emotions. And so it caused me to overreact a lot of times too, because I'm constantly trying to put the fire out and calm them down. And then sometimes I just gave up, and I just get in these big old fights where I'd just be like, I can't stand this anymore. But you can't fight with somebody who's not reasonable. And it gets really crazy, right? But after I got through all of that, I mean, I try, like, here, I'll give this, because Everett says he has trouble with driving angry. When you're driving and somebody cuts you off, what goes in my mind is not how dare them try to kill me. It's, I bet their kid is in the hospital. I bet he got a call at work that his kid got hit by a car, or his wife's in the hospital with a heart attack or something crazy, and they're just trying to get to the hospital. They're not trying to wreck your day. They're just frantically trying to get to the hospital. So if I think that in my mind, then I have a ton of grace for people. But when I think, how dare you? You tried to kill me. You're going to cause an accident. You're a moron. Then, I have a different mindset,
Yeah. Joyce, did you have something to say?
Yeah, no, and like we can move on. I just the one quick thing is sometimes it is okay to answer yourself. Celeste, you said don't answer yourself. Sometimes you need to answer yourself. Just don't do it in the grocery store or a restaurant. So
just don't have a full conversation with yourself, and we're good. No,
I have one video before we finish, so let me know when I could show it.
Oh, okay. Before we finish the podcast,
real quick, yeah.
Okay.
So you know how women like have their list, right? We should have a list. We should always have a list of
we're going to talk
what you want, right?
Okay.
A list does matter. Well, a list matters in the idea of what you're looking for, but it can't be unreasonable if you're not going to be the person who could be on that list.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So if you say, if I weigh 400 pounds and I say, I want a skinny CrossFit girl, that is never going to happen, guys. That is never going to happen. You're going to have if I can't fit on that list, then why would she be interested in me?
So this is why I bring up the list, because there's other things we always have too much and we can never talk about it all. But lists are, like I was talking to me and Joyce here, tend to be the standard within the young women's program within the church. Why? I don't know. I think it's totally wrong and it's unfair to the men. But I do think when you add the list that they have you make for your future husband, and then you take into all the account all of the fairy tale cartoons you watched since you were 2, and then you take into the account all of the movies that are romantic, the old movies, the new movies that are just like this perfect man that has no flaws that's gonna just sweep you off your feet. Like if you take all that and combine it into a big ball, no wonder half, or probably even more, women on this earth feel entitled to receive Prince Charming. It's a sad reality. So how do we go about recognizing that the lists probably aren't very helpful? We need to know the type of person we want. But again, back to the Corey's thing about the women like to rank things and have their top 10. How is that? And
it feeds into the guys, and the guys try to fit that box, and they'll even change themselves to try to fit that box.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is you got to be authentic. You got to be your real self. You can't say, oh, this girl wants a fit guy. I'm not really a fit guy, but I'm going to tell her I'm into fitness. Like,
I really like
she's going to find out you're a fraud. Like if you're not into fitness.
I like to watch the Olympics. It makes me feel like I'm actually, doing some exercise.
So let's, like, I have a couple comments about this idea of a list, and this kind of like, I've been a long time young women's leader, and I cherish the young women that I worked with, and I think they're amazing and wonderful. And when I think about, the crowning creation of our Heavenly Father, it was his daughters. And so there are many reasons for us to feel like we have value, but I don't think our value, just because we're women and we're daughters of our Heavenly Father, that it means that we have greater value than his sons. And so I think that's an important thing. Like, I get the having them make lists, wanting them to be prepared, wanting them to be looking for the right qualities, but we're adults now. We're not 15-year-old girls writing a list. And when we think about the list and what we're looking for, we need to figure out what we bring to the table that, is on that list. And that, just being a woman in the church is just not enough to be on every man's list. And so like, I have a hard time, because I love my sisters. I don't want to cut them down, but I do think we have to be careful about this perception that, as a woman, just because I'm a woman, I have this tremendous worth. You do to your Heavenly Father, but that doesn't mean that every man should want to date you.
Are you saying that they should not treat us like a queen? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think one person should treat us like a queen, which is the man we marry, not necessarily every man we ever meet.
After marriage, then, the queen worship can begin, right?
Well, only if what? Like,
if
it can't just be the
worship
queen.
too.
We've got to have a king, right?
The king gets worship too, right?
That's where I think we lack in our culture, is that all of a sudden it's just the queen show or the princess show. And these men are trying to measure up, but the thing is men are different than women, and so they're like, I'm trying to be what you need, but the women's got their
we're
list.
born to serve. We are born to serve. Like, we love to serve. If you go to church and you serve and you love that, why not serve your spouse?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
services really brings us joy.
Mm-hmm.
And it should go both ways, you know, like I think we talk about, like, I know some people don't love the phrase as a partner, but I mean, that's what an eternal companion should be, a partner. Like, you should be a partner in building an eternal relationship, you know, a life together. And so in a partnership, you don't have one who sits around and does nothing. You know, you both are fully invested in that.
Yep. So this is my thought on this list. Just the final thought, and see what you guys think. If you're going to make a list, you know, maybe you're a list maker, or maybe you're still got your list that you made in Young Women's and you're thinking, I'm still going to hold strong because I know I'm going to get this person. Make sure that you qualify in those. Are you on the list? Like, does this reflect you as well? Is your list reflecting who you are?
Mm-hmm.
And if your list differs from who you are, then you need to work on your list so that you measure up to the person you want to attract, because you will attract someone who's like you. And so if you're looking for someone who's, let's do the outer appearance, who is fit, guess what? Go to the gym. If you are looking for someone who grooms, okay, go and hang out in hair places, or, you know, whatever. Like, find people who are your like kind. And so go ahead.
And can I say this? Because I think it's okay for you to say, I want to be with someone who's attractive to me. Yes. It's okay for you to say, like, there are some things that are sometimes seen as superficial, and it's okay to kind of want those things if that's important to you. But to Celeste's point, like, you can't want those things and not also be those things. And again, not like, as we're talking about spirituality, you can't, like, it's never going to be exactly the same. But like, you have to be able to qualify for someone else's list. If you, I'm not saying that right, but you have to be the things that you really want to find in others.
That's right. Be the person you want to date or want to marry. Like, that's what it kind of comes down to. And I'm not saying like gender. I know people like, well, I'm a male, I can't be a female. But, you know, if there's certain attributes that you want in your partner, make
That's
sure
a perfect segue for my video.
That's right. Oh, hey, you know what? Okay.
So if you guys, I got some homework for you guys.
Hold on one second. Let me just do one thing, and then you can do your video. So I just want a couple, because we weren't going to get to it, but we did talk about serving others. But I know that we also spoke about like developing our own talents. And a good way to find people who are quality people in our minds is to go and do the things you like to go and do, and find people who are doing the same things that you like. And do not wait for perfection to decide to start dating. So when you start reflecting, you start trying to figure out, becoming my best self, I'm going to do what I can do to be who I want to attract. You're not going to be perfect, and neither are they. So give yourself some grace, love yourself, and be on that journey together with whoever it is that you're trying to attract. All right, Corey.
All right, so homework assignment, everyone. Go out and rent or find or rent the movie Bedazzled. It's from 2000. It's got Brandon Fraser in it.
Okay.
And it's hilarious because the devil in this movie is a female, and this guy, Brandon Fraser's character, he's in love with this girl that wants nothing to do with him. It's a great, right? And so he makes a deal with the devil and says, I want to be the person that she wants, right? He's trying to be her items on the list. So like he'll say something like, I want to be rich, right? And then she'll go, okay, poof, and he'll wake up in this bed, and he's like, look, I'm in this giant mansion, I got servants and all that, but then there's this rival cartel trying to kill him. She made him a cartel member. That's why he's rich. I mean, she's always screwing him over. Like, she puts a little twist on it, right? So here's a clip. I'll show the clip that that I think it's pretty funny. So he says, "Oh, she likes sensitive guys," and so she
Oh,
says,
no.
"Okay, go ahead and make me sensitive." And so this is what happens.
I'm back, my love. I want to make a garland of beach plums to place atop your glowing head like a crown. But then I caught sight of that sunset. I don't know. Stirred inside me, and I had to stop and weep. Beautiful. It is.
He can't help himself. That's what's so funny is that the devil made him too sensitive.
No.
Okay, so just so you know, Corey, we can't really hear what it's saying because
What?
yeah, we can't really hear it. We can hear you really well.
Darn
We
it.
can't really hear it. But this, I wish we could maybe post it on Flameless and people can watch
Yeah.
it. But this is what I was saying to both of you today. Like, I think sometimes us women are like, I want this Prince Charming. I want Mr. Sensitive to sweep me away and carry me away and all those things. But the truth is do we really want a feminine man? I don't know. Like to me, I'm like, no. Like you want a kind man, you want a gentleman, but you don't want this. Like you don't want this. This is not masculine, right? So anyway, I don't know how to get that off the screen, or else I would, because we can't hear it.
Oh
So,
no, we'll get off the screen.
yeah.
Don't worry.
So anyway, I just think sometimes I know us women, we're more emotional than men. We get that. We like to hear the good things that make us feel good and live the physical touch and stuff like that. But we also, I think, sometimes overshoot with wanting to have this Prince Charming because you know what? I mean, you want a masculine man, right? And man, you like feminine females, I'm assuming. So I don't know. Just in the end here, we'll end with one of these. And I know we probably already put this up here, but this one's kind of funny. God's not going to match you with a 10 if you're acting like a 2. Okay. We're not talking physical on this. We're talking your actions, the way you do, what you think, how you react with people. So if you kind of feel like maybe you're wanting to attract a 10 and maybe you're not quite at a 10, just, take some quiet time like Joyce suggests and pray to Heavenly Father and ask him to help you see your weaknesses. Because guess what? If you see your weaknesses, he will make them your strengths. So we hope you enjoyed this podcast and we will see you next time. Oh, no, I think maybe we will see you next time. Okay. So where are y'all? Okay.